My name is Ron. I'm sitting here in my garden. It's late summer, early fall. Matter of fact, if you open the mountains, the leaves are already changing. I've done most of the harvesting with my produce. I'm just trying to wrap a few things up. But I kind of wanted to do this presentation on the miracle of corn. And yeah, I know. Some of you guys are thinking in your minds, boring. But I think if you just sit tight, I can show you a few things that you might find interesting. Before I get into the corn, though, I'd like to show you a couple other vegetables and a few things that make this whole system work. To me, the whole garden's a miracle, and how these things keep producing themselves. So I just want to go over that. You'll notice behind me I have a fence. This fence totally surrounds my garden. This is the front part, but on the other sides and the back, I've got it almost 7 feet high. The reason for that is to keep the deer out. There's some nights that I'll have up to 15 headed deer on the property, and so you just need to keep them out of the garden.
You shall not pass!
Yeah. Anyway, this video isn't about planting corn and watering it. It's about the miracle of corn and some of the conclusions that it suggests to me. That's what I want to cover in this. Yeah, this is one of the crops that I was talking about that's alive and well, and that's the potatoes. The principle behind potatoes for me and some of the other vegetables that we do is I want to produce enough that'll last me a year. So potatoes, for example, I've got a couple rows of these. You see where they're getting close to harvest. The way to tell is when the plants start dying off, then we can get in here, and if I can get a couple 100 pounds of potatoes, put in my root cellar, then I won't have to buy any for a year. And then come next spring, I can take these potatoes and quarter them, shove them down in the mud, and they're producing again. So the life cycle and supporting me and sustaining me and animals continues to go. Hey, we've shown a few of the vegetables, and you know, all the plants and everything in this garden, it's alive, and its purpose is to sustain me as growing it and animals. So even this stuff, after you harvest it, it seems to die. You got these corn shucks, I got eggs, carrot tops. So as these things die, I try to turn it in and use it to my advantage. Now if we come right over here, when all the leaves off my trees fall this fall, I'm going to put them in this bin. Not all of them, it takes me a couple batches. But I turn all this dead matter alive again. This is what all this turns into. This is compost. I mean, look at that. It's no smell. It's just like dirt. So what happens is the plants suck the nutrients out of the soil, and I give the nutrients back by turning into this, and then I use this when I plant in spring and throughout my plants, and so I don't need fertilizers or anything. I'm just creating the cycle that works for the system. This stuff is pure gold. Well, let me clarify that for you young kids. This is dope, man. But anyway, even this is alive. That, if you have the right nitrogen and carbon mixture, little micro thing, I can't think of the term.
I don't speak freaky deaky Dutch.
Grow and become alive and break it down. So it's definitely alive too. I even have a worm farm that's alive.
It's alive! It's alive!
Hey, well, like I said, the documentary on this is called The Miracle of Corn, and I'm going to try to go through a few things now that you might find really interesting on this. But this is the corn I planted. This brand is called Peaches and Cream. which means the stalk is generally yellow and it's got an occasional white kernel for the peach. I told you I do, this year I did a little experiment. This is the corn that I've irrigated. I actually flood the corn with water and let it soak down, and that's how I water it, and I'll tell you some others when I get to the other one. But how the miracle of corn is from that little kernel that I planted, you get this entire stalk that comes up. At the top we have the tassels, and then when the corn starts to form, and you guys probably all know this, it's got this this silk that comes out the top. Now here's something interesting. Each one of these silk fibers is attached to a kernel. So you've opened some corn and oh baby, look at that. It's about perfect as the ear as you can get. But sometimes you'll open the husk and the ear, and you'll have a couple, 3 kernels that are missing. The reason why is that silk, that hair, each one of those silk fibers go to a kernel. And if that silk didn't get pollinated, then that kernel won't show. So sometimes you'll have some ears that have a whole back section that hasn't developed. It's because that silk never got pollinated. How the pollination works is the silk comes out on the ear, and the tassels have all these little pollinators up here, and they hang down. There's still a few on this. Of course, it's late summer, like I said, the end of the harvest. And the wind will have these drop onto the silk and pollinate it. Or the bees come along. Now, 2 weeks ago, this whole field was infested with honeybees. And they're getting the nectar and the pollen, and they have these drop down onto the silk. So here we have a stalk from a kernel that is developed into its own pollination system, totally contained within that. And then it produces, of course, the corn. Oh man, that is good. Can't beat that at all. Hey, here we are at my experimental corn. This one I actually put in a grow box with a drip hose. So the water actually waters just the root of the plant. You can see these are about 1 foot taller than the other field that we've got. I use a lot less water, but anyway, it's turned out well. The miracle of corn. One of the points I wanted to make in this video is oh yeah, look at that. It's got the white specks, which is the cream. It's peaches and cream. It is a miracle to start with that seed, to come up and have a piece of silk that goes to each kernel, pollinates itself. And so one point I wanted to make is, you know, I get thinking about Darwinism and the Big Bang Theory. I just can't wrap my head around that, because when I see something like this, I just don't know how Big Bang Theory would have made all this. There's got to be a higher deity. Anyway, we'll move on. I got one more thing to talk about, and we'll go to that point. Thank you. All right, there's one more thing I wanted to tell you about corn. As soon as you pick a cob of corn, the sugars start immediately turning to starch. The starch is what this needs to seed these kernels out for seeds. So by the time you buy your corn at Wally World or whatever grocery store, that's why it's generally tough and not near as sweet as right off the cob. That's the ultimate sugar part right there. Stuff is so good. Great.